Now, we're going back to the phone lines, and Josiah Burke joins me on the line now. And Josiah is a business student in NUI Galway, and this is on the Citizens' Assembly. Good morning to you, Josiah.
Good morning, Angelina.
I suppose, on the Citizens' Assembly, you had some views, and I know there was a lot of talk about this on social media last week, and the appointment the appointment of a number of different people onto the Citizens' Assembly. You had thoughts on this week, I know.
I did. I suppose the issue here is that when we think about the Citizens' Assembly, and I suppose what I'm doing is I'm talking to the normal people today, we think of the 99 citizens who are on the Assembly, who are normal people selected from around the country. But what people don't know about is this small number of people called the Expert Advisory Group that are making critically important decisions about who speaks at the Assembly, about the kind of information that's given out to the normal Assembly members. And what we don't hear much about is this group, this Expert Advisory Group. And just a little bit of information around it, background information. It was set up by the government, obviously with the Assembly. The members, the 7 members, they're academia practitioners, they're considered experts in their respective fields. And what their job is to assist the work of the Assembly, I'm reading off the terms of reference, in preparing information advice, preparing background expert advice on the issues, and advising on the criteria for selecting specialists and experts to appear before the Assembly. So this is very important. You're talking about the people who are addressing the Assembly, the speakers. You're talking about the kind of information that's going to be chosen to give to these people in order for them to make a decision. Now, looking at the terms of reference, the criteria for anyone who is on this expert group was that they will be impartial and objective on the issues. So obviously the issue we're all concerned about, there are a number of issues, but the main one is the 8th Amendment and abortion in Ireland. And that's the criteria, impartiality and objectivity. Now, on top of that, the chairperson of the Assembly, Justice Mary Lafoy, she's a retired Supreme Court judge in charge of the Assembly. She came out on RTE News, and I quote from October 15th, 2016, an article. I quote, "None of the appointees to the expert group has expressed a view on the constitutional restrictions on abortion in public." So that's what she said. She told the nation that no one had expressed a view in that.
And you'd imagine that would be the ideal situation, that you would have people who are, as you said, impartial and help guide the Citizens' Assembly, yeah.
And Angelina, of course, there are many of such people around the country with a vast amount of academia practitioners who genuinely maybe just aren't really totally interested in the abortion issue, and who would be impartial, and who haven't made any statements in the past. But what I found out, and I've looked into this extensively, I've just been shocked really, because according to the terms of reference, and it is important when we talk about it to remember that this is a government body, and Enda Kenny has set aside €2 million of our tax money to deal with this, to set up this Citizens' Assembly, to fund it. So it's our duty really to look into this and to hold them to account. One of the members of the expert group, and I'm just picking here, is a gentleman called Declan Keane, and he said on the Irish Health Premier Independent Health Resource in 2002, he stated, I quote, "I would broadly support abortion for congenital abnormalities." They're his exact words. RT News reported on May 10th, 2007, I quote, "The Master of the National Maternity Hospital, Dr. Declan Keane, has called for the law to be changed to allow abortions to take place in Ireland where the fetus has no chance of living outside the womb." So you tell me if that's impartial or if that's not expressing a view. Going on, Deirdre Madden is a professor at UCC. She's on the expert group, She's on the terms of reference here in front of me. She's a long-term campaigner for embryonic stem cell research in Ireland. According to the Irish Medical News, she said that Ireland should not avoid participation in embryonic stem cell research. They're her exact words. And Angelina, there's a book called The Unborn Child, Article 43.3 and Abortion in Ireland. That was published in 2008, all about the 8th Amendment. She wrote an article in that book, and she said that the 8th Amendment, I quote, "is a fundamental difficulty in dealing with the regulation of AHR and embryonic stem cell research." So obviously she's a campaigner for embryonic stem cell research, and she says that the one obstacle to that is the 8th Amendment. So you have someone there who's clearly making a statement, a very public statement. And
now, can I ask of the other side, just to ask, so that's perhaps those people have expressed a view, which is not, as we said, ideal in what we were told would happen, but would there be a balance then? A balance among this expert group? Where
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But the fact of the matter is that it's a very small group with 7 members. I've looked into, time doesn't permit to go much farther, but I have looked into other members, and there is other very disturbing things there as well. The fact of the matter is that this is an expert group. This is not the Assembly. This is the expert group. There should be no bias here. There should be no partiality. There should be no opinions in that sense coming out one way or the other. And the crux of the matter is, Angelina, that Judge Mary Laffoy told the nation, and by her, I suppose, Enda Kenny and his government, that none of the appointees have expressed a view on the constitutional restrictions on abortion. And they have made very public statements about what they think should happen. So I just feel it's very concerning. It's disheartening for me as a young person looking at this, looking at my country. And then on another level, it's very worrying because it appears that we might be being misled. We are being misled with regard to the unbiased nature of the expert group. And, just when you put this in context, the Citizens' Assembly is going to come out with a report very soon. And the Irish Times reported in January 8th of this year, and they said, the title of the article, Citizens' Assembly leans towards change in Ireland's abortion laws. And it's like we're supposed to be surprised. It's like we're supposed to be surprised that the Citizens' Assembly is going to come out and recommend that we bring in abortion to this country when we have an expert group that is biased, that is clearly has people on it that have made statements, public statements, about their support for abortion.
But would it not be fair to say as well that the people on the Citizens' Assembly, should we not give them some credit that they can make up their own minds on it?
Well, that's a point, but the fact is that these are normal people, Angelina. They're you and me. They're
but yes, they are, and just to be fair to them, that you would hope that most normal people, whether, as you said, some people may not have an interest in it, but if they're on the Citizens' Assembly and have an interest, that they would have their own formed opinion, and have that may have been shaped long before they come in contact with this expert group.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, I suppose, that they're not going to be. They're going to be presented with information. They're going to be presented with speakers. And those speakers and that information, judging from what I've seen from my research and looking at these people who clearly are not unbiased, there's a very real danger. And I would believe personally that there is a bias there in the information that's going to be given out. And, you have an unconscious, if you're sitting there and you're a member of the Citizens' Assembly, of course, you're going to have an unconscious you could say a bias towards the information that's been given to you. And that's why this is so important, because the expert group is not the one we don't hear about it, we don't hear anything about it. And it's providing the information, it's deciding who speaks, it's deciding these critically important decisions. And absolutely important that they should be impartial, absolutely important that they should be objective, but they're not. And I suppose what worries me at the bottom line is that Judge Laffoy told us that none of them has made a statement, and this is the crux of it, really, and they have. So my question then is, if we're not being told the truth on the expert group, how can we trust anything that comes out of the Citizens' Assembly? And we need honesty, we need truth, we need transparency in our public bodies, and the Irish people deserve better than this. And I would encourage people, really, I suppose because I'm so concerned about this myself, I don't believe people know about it. I don't believe people are aware of what's happening. I set up a website called citizensassembly.info, and if people would like to check into that, all the information is there about what I'm speaking about today, all the facts. I'm not interested in my opinion or your opinion. I'm interested in the facts. Mm-hmm. If Judge Laffoy tells us that none of them have made a statement or none of them have expressed a view in public, well, it's very worrying to me then that I look into it and I do my research and I find out that they have. How can I have any confidence in the Citizens' Assembly? How can I have any confidence in the government? How can I have any confidence in the conclusions that they're going to come to if I can't trust the basic statements by Judge Laffoy, which states that none of these people are unbiased? So that's what worries me, really.
Yeah, now I accept your point on what Justice Lafoy's statement has been and what you're worried about and your concern there. But just as regards, people can watch the work of the Citizens' Assembly. In terms of transparency, I know it's available to watch on their website. You can watch the archive footage. Does that not give you some consolation that, well, we can watch what's happening here? It is transparent. We know what's being said, what's being discussed, who's speaking, who's addressing it, etc.
That is true, but I go back to this again because it's crucially important. And the fact of the matter is, Angelina, that normal people across this country don't have time to be sitting in front of their computer all Saturday or over the weekend looking at and studying these things. We expect to be told the truth. We expect to be told clearly what is the case. And that's why we don't have, I'm talking about the normal people today who have a trust in their public representatives and the public bodies that deal with these things. And they're believing that the Citizens' Assembly is unbiased, that they're being presented with information that's unbiased and that's balanced, that the people on the expert group, they probably don't even know there is an expert group, but if they do, they think that it's fair and the people on it are completely impartial. And that's not the case. And, you're like I said, these things are subtle. You're going to have a subtle bias infiltrating into the information given, into the speakers selected. One speaker will be put down, another one will be selected, maybe for reasons. And it's just very worrying. And again, I suppose, I'm repeating myself, but I go back again to Judge Lafoy, because we're talking about the chair of the Assembly. We're talking about the chair of the Assembly, a Supreme Court judge who is chairing this Assembly. And she has told the Irish people, and that is one, I suppose, when I talk about people not having time to look at the proceedings, what they do have time for is they switch on the RT News in the evening. And this is when this appeared. So Judge Lafoy comes on in the evening and she tells the nation that none of these people, everything is fine, they're totally impartial, none of them have expressed a view in public. And I look into it, I pull back the layers and I find out that they have, clearly. And that just worries me deeply. And I suppose what I'm getting at here is that I don't believe people know about this. I don't believe the ordinary Irish people are aware of what's happening here. They think it's 99 people sitting in a room deciding. It's not. These people are normal people. They need information, they need advice, and they're getting it from people who are not impartial. And like I said, it's completely factual. I'm not expressing my opinion here. I'm expressing the facts. The facts have told us over the last few years. So you have this problem, and they've made very public statements about their support for abortion. And that just worries me very, very deeply. And I suppose, we heard a lot from Fine Gael and the government about getting rid of cronyism and getting rid of corruption. But if this isn't cronyism and corruption, I really don't know what is. Okay. And we need to get involved here. And I suppose I would encourage people to get in touch with their local representatives, because if you go on to citizensassembly.info, I'd encourage people who are listening to take that down and get online whenever they can and look at that. There's a letter there you can download and send to your local representative, because we deserve better than this. And what I'm doing simply today is I'm doing my bit to try and inform people about what's happening, because I firmly believe 100% that people do not know what's happening here.
Okay, Josiah, thank you very much for joining us this morning.